You've probably stumbled onto a game before, not really expecting much, and then before you knew it, hours, maybe even days, had flown by. This video shines a light on those hidden gems that pulled you in unexpectedly, either because of their compelling stories, tight gameplay, or unforgettable experiences. These are some of the best examples of games you randomly gave a shot and then couldn't put down. Without further ado, let's get into the list. Let's start right away with Children of Morta. Now here's something that sneaks up on you. Children of Morta feels like it's going to be your standard pixel art roguelite at first glance. Then, gradually, you realize there's much more to it. You've got a whole family of heroes, the Bergsons, each with their own playstyle, quirks, and skills. So it's like you're juggling not just one character, but this intricate web of family dynamics and growth every time you play. Sometimes it's less about perfection in a single run and more about improving the collective. There's this constant sense of progression, not just in the individual characters, but in the emotional bond between them. It's storytelling and action so tightly entwined that you get lost in it without even realizing how much time is slipping by. When things get tough, the game's difficulty spikes can feel frustrating though. It pushes you harder, almost too much at points. Still, it's hard not to stay glued thanks to its mix of family-driven narrative and fast-paced hack and slash. The pixel art is also worth mentioning, especially when it comes to those little cutscenes between dungeon runs. They really nail the mix of dark and cozy. Whether you're feeling more like a spell-slinging grandma or a brawler with a sword, the game always feels fresh. You're not just investing in one playthrough or character, it's all about everyone, all the time. Next up is X4 Foundations. Alright, let's talk about X4 Foundations. You don't get addicted to this one right off the bat. It's not that kind of game. You jump in, maybe just think you're dabbling, and all of a sudden you've got a space empire to manage. Developers Egosoft went all out with the customization in this one. You're not boxed into any one playstyle, trader, pirate, explorer. You go as far as your imagination lets you. At first, it's pretty overwhelming, honestly. There's a ton to take in. Managing your fleet, building stations, navigating political factions, that learning curve is steep. That's why, for a lot of people, this game doesn't grab you right away. There's a sense of discovery to it, though, and the huge scope of the game means you're constantly finding something new to do, even hours deep. Where it shines is in letting the player build, not just physically with stations and ships, but you're crafting your entire universe, down to the trade routes. You can zoom out and watch all these moving parts in real time, like some kind of strategy game, or hop in your ship and manually fine-tune things on the ground level. Or, well, in space. Now it's got its bugs, no doubt about that. Things don't always go smoothly, especially early on. Patches have worked their magic here though, and Egosoft is known for sticking with their games for years. That dedication shows. You're likely to find yourself checking back into this one every few months, tweaking a station or two, and before you know it, you already dropped another 100 hours into the game. Coming in next is SteamWorld Build. You know SteamWorld games, right? You've got platformers, tower defense, card battlers, but Build comes in a little different. It's a city builder, yeah, but with that quirky, Wild Westy, Steam-powered vibe from the other games in the series. And instead of it just being about managing a surface town, you're digging deep underground to find resources too. This mix keeps you on your toes. Above ground, you're managing citizens, resources, and expansion, just like most strategy games. But then you're delving underground like some old-school dungeon crawler, aiming to avoid cave-ins and mine deeper. That split between surface management and subterranean treasure hunting just feels good, keeps things balanced, and you're never just doing one task the whole time. The SteamWorld franchise has always been known for its clean and consistent art style, and Build doesn't disappoint. It's all sharp, colorful, and instantly recognizable with this almost playful steampunk charm. You dive in, and it feels familiar, even though it's technically a new genre for them. However, some players found the underground part to be a little repetitive after a while. You're hoping each layer down is different enough to justify the effort. Although steadily carving through the dirt and watching your mining projects grow, that just one more turn feel keeps pulling you back. But still, it's hard not to want a little more variety in there. Even if city builders aren't really your jam, the mix of two totally different genres can end up reeling you in when you least expect it, especially when they're this polished. Next on the list is Wavetale. On the surface, it's this charming, small-scale adventure with a lovely art style and fluidity. But before you know it, you're kind of hooked on the movement. You see, the big thing here is the way you just glide across water. The mechanics are super simple, but that's exactly what makes it so satisfying. It's freedom on a surface, literally wavetops, that just feels good. As you dash around the ocean in a post-apocalyptic world, it's got a dreamy, therapeutic quality. You hop from wave to wave, solve puzzles, collect some things along the way. The game never tries to overwhelm you with complexity. Instead, it leans into its simplicity, and sometimes that's all you need. You might even forget time's passing because there's this weird zen flow to navigating between islands. It's not an endless feeling game though, so after a few hours, you might want a bit more meat in characters or level diversity. Those who stick around do so because the traversal just feels that good. Sliding across water, catching wind drafts, and hopping back onto land seamlessly. You never want to stop moving. The art direction ties it all together with soft color palettes painting this world of melancholy beauty, like watching a dream unfold. In short, you start playing for the story and visuals, but you stay because mastering that water surfing flow becomes its own dopamine hit, smooth and addictive. Up next is Lunistice. Now, Lunistice, you're looking at a different kind of addiction. It's got this throwback to PS1 era visuals. Blocky, low poly, all colorful and nostalgic. The magic was the simplicity mixed with an intense focus on platforming. It's fast, responsive, and all about precision. Just you and that jump button battling each level, and doing it over and over again. Aiming for perfection, yeah, that's the hook. The developers didn't try to overcomplicate anything, so you're moving through these tight, well-crafted levels with great pace. The game kind of rewards mastery. Each level feels increasingly fast-paced, making you want to get better and better at nailing jumps and timing. Like, there's the addictive layer, buried under the nostalgia and simplicity. You start speedrunning parts without even realizing you're doing it. Here's where the game will make you pause, though. The camera. Sometimes it plays tricks on you, especially when those tight platforming sections require precision. When it works well, you feel like a platforming god. But when the camera angles get tricky, things can turn frustrating quick. You still push through because the game constantly teases you with that just one more perfect run vibe. It doesn't blow the doors open on groundbreaking design, sure, but it nails fun. Simple, arcade-like fun that brings back that old school charm. And yeah, it's reason enough to say, all right, one more run, even when you've beaten the level 3 times already. Next up, we have Mark of the Ninja Remastered. This is actually one of my favorite games before this game even received a remastered version. On the surface, it's a stealth platformer, and stealth games tend to come with a slower, more methodical pace. But not this one. Here, you start to realize it's all about flexibility. How do you want to handle each situation? Go loud and bloody, or ghost your way through unseen? The game lets you choose, which is where things start to get exciting. The original was already a masterpiece in stealth game design, really, but this remastered version kicks up the visual detail. The 2D art style shines with updated HD graphics, making every shadow-rich environment pop. The beauty of it is in the tension, right? Each level throws challenges your way, but the solution is never just one thing. It's an adrenaline rush, trying to stay hidden or deciding whether you're gonna get in there and make a mess. It's got all the classic ninja tools too. You're playing with smoke bombs, noisemakers, and of course, your trusty blade. Dodging enemies or planning that perfect stealth kill makes the gameplay loop super tight, addictive even. You start by creeping through levels cautiously, but soon enough you're zipping back through, trying to get every collectible and perfect score, without even realizing. If there's a minor gripe, the remastered changes don't drastically revamp gameplay, which might leave returning players looking for more. Still, the itch for stealth mixed with speed makes Mark of the Ninja an endless pulling force. Up next is Katana ZERO. Since I've already mentioned Mark of the Ninja, I also had to include Katana ZERO on this list. This game begins pretty casually, but then you hit your first slice and dice kill paired with that bullet time slow motion effect, and suddenly you're trapped into a loop of bloody, hyper-stylized perfection. So, there's this mechanic where you're planning out each kill room in advance, predicting enemy movements. It's like a violent, fast-paced game of chess, except everything explodes. And it's here, with the game's instant restart feature, that you slide from curious player to full-on addict. It's not just that the action is tight, fluid, responsive, though that certainly doesn't hurt. It's the way Katana ZERO almost has this rhythmic flow to it. Every kill becomes its own mini-puzzle. Slash, roll, slow down time, reflect bullets with your sword. Each stage nudges you deeper into this near-hypnotic state as you execute it all perfectly, or fail and immediately try again without missing a beat. The game's narrative also drives things forward, with its trippy, fragmented storyline about assassins and mental manipulation. You start getting wrapped up in trying to figure out what's real and what's, well, something else. Mixed in with the brutal action is this subtle mental tug-of-war that you're trying to solve on the side. Though sometimes the game's plot cuts into the flow. That hyper-violent ballet you're dancing in gets interrupted by a slow, dialogue-heavy scene. It's not bad, just slows things way down when your brain's revving for more chaos. But the allure of that perfect run keeps you coming back for more. If you prefer this fast-paced action, then I recommend getting Katana ZERO instead of Mark of the Ninja, which is more focused on stealth. Another surprising game is Space Engineers. Space Engineers can seem like just another sandbox game at first, but it's way more than just building rockets and flying around. You've got an entire galaxy in front of you, unlimited creativity, and the chance to design these insanely detailed ships from scratch. You're not following some prefab model. It's all on you how your spaceship turns out. That's where the game really hooks into you. Every little piece, every bolt, every thruster matters, and before you know it, hours are gone. Players often dive in thinking they'll just build a small ship or station, but then you start figuring out how power distribution works, the physics of weight, velocity, and gravity, and suddenly you're adjusting your designs and considering engineering problems you never thought a game would make you care about. You weren't planning on a new career in aerospace, but this game almost pushes you there. What's cool here is the freedom. You've got single player, multiplayer, survival, and creative modes, so you can really go at your own pace. In survival, gathering resources and managing power efficiently becomes your new addiction, while in creative mode, you're just letting your imagination run wild with massive builds. It's not perfect though. Some might find the UI for managing all the ship functions, menus, and blocks kind of clunky or overwhelming, especially at the start. It might take time before you really figure out what's what. But stick with it, and suddenly you're not just flying a ship. You've built a functioning base in space, and each part feels like a personal achievement. Another solid entry on the list is Autonauts. Autonauts gets you addicted not through flashy graphics or intense action, but by scratching that automation itch. You're dropped on a planet and given basic tools to start farming resources. Then quickly, it gets deeper. You're teaching little robots how to do your tasks for you. By the time you've hit your first robot, you're pretty much stuck in this loop of efficiency. Not building things yourself is great. The game's about how efficiently you can delegate tasks. You're literally programming, bit by bit. You start with simple tasks like chopping down trees or gathering stone. Then you're getting a little more ambitious, teaching robots to farm, dig, build, whatever. And sure, your first few bots are bumbling around, barely keeping things together. But over time, you'll create a colony where you're doing nothing, while your robots run the world for you. The key is that you're constantly improving them, upgrading their tasks. Where this gets addicting is in the small victories. There's always one more thing to optimize. Maybe the stone runs out too fast, so you adjust that, then realize you need to teach another robot how to smelt ore right after. It's like this expanding web of cause and effect, where every small change touches something larger. There's some early game grind for sure. It can take a bit to get your army of cute robots doing things right without a hitch. But that's part of the charm. The satisfaction when everything's finally running smoothly, yeah, that'll keep you coming back to see what else you can streamline. Let's keep things going with Void Bastards. So Void Bastards, this one kind of smashes genre expectations together in the best way. It's got that whole strategy meets FPS vibe, where you're navigating a derelict, procedurally generated spaceship, scavenging for supplies. On top of that, you've got to sneak or fight your way through the threats on board. That mixture of high-concept roguelike design and first-person combat, it feels like it shouldn't quite work, but it absolutely does, making you fall deep into these runs. The kicker is that every death tosses you into a new character's shoes. You've got these dudes who are, let's say, underprepared and massively out of their depth. It leads to some hilarious situations because sometimes characters come with ridiculous drawbacks. You end up thinking to have one more run, whether because your next character is awesome or hilariously flawed. The comic book art style really stands out too, adding this vibrant pop to the whole experience. Each ship may look different, but the cell shading keeps it consistent and fun to take in. The humor is kind of dry, twisted, and fits perfectly for a group of disposable prisoners trying to survive in space. Slight criticism here, the combat's fairly simple. It's serviceable and feels good in short bursts, but it doesn't evolve much as you go deeper in. What keeps you hooked is the roguelike loop of upgrading your weapons, getting better gear, and pushing just a little farther each time. You constantly feel like you're mere steps away from a breakthrough, even when you're heavily outmatched, which makes each run seriously hard to put down. Up next is Neon Abyss. Now, Neon Abyss pulls you in right from the get-go with its blazing fast action. It's a roguelike at heart, but it's flashy. You're jumping into a bullet hell platformer that takes all the chaotic elements of a top-tier arcade game and just cranks them up. What starts out as a simple room-clearing shooter becomes something far more expansive as you pick up random power-ups and stack them in pretty wild combos. Suddenly, you can fly, shoot lasers, or have pet companions amplifying your firepower. The possibilities push you into this state where you're constantly experimenting, always hungry to see what the next item is going to do to your build. You're dropped into procedurally generated levels, with boss battles at the end of each run. Thing is, even after you die and start over, there's this feeling that it'll go differently the next time because of all the combinations waiting to be discovered. You're chasing that next epic power-up combination, and it's hard to stop yourself even when you realize you've been at it for hours. The pixel art here is bright, colorful, and neat, though not groundbreaking. The real addictive sauce is in the combat, and those ridiculous item synergies keep pulling you back for more. It's the pure chaos. You start blasting stuff on screen in total mayhem and just hope you don't get crushed before you find that perfect item to save the run. Some bosses feel a bit bullet spongy, which can drag, but the sheer level of customization and strategy emerging from seemingly random builds makes each death feel like another reason to try one more run. You rarely quit satisfied. Next up, we have Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. You pick Guardians of the Galaxy expecting some lighthearted space action, maybe goofing around with Star-Lord and crew. What you don't immediately realize is just how quickly you'll get invested in these chaotic misfits. Eidos Montreal turned what could have been a shallow superhero cash-in into an epic space opera full of heart. The game's pacing feels sharp. You've got your action-packed shootouts mixed perfectly with character moments. The banter between the team really makes you feel part of their dysfunctional family. One second, you're knee-deep in action, blasting alien threats to a killer-licensed soundtrack. And the next, you're laughing, or maybe even tearing up during these beautifully written character interactions. It's this balance of explosive action and emotional depth that keeps things lively. The game's environments are visually varied too, with stunning alien worlds that make you want to keep exploring just a little longer. On the combat side, commanding the whole team feels great. You're calling the shots, directing Drax, Rocket, and the rest to unleash their signature moves. There's something almost tactical about managing all that chaos. Sometimes, though, the combat can feel a bit samey. You're often waiting for the next story beat more than the next battle. Eidos Montreal nailed that irresistible mix of humor, character, and spectacle. And it's hard not to just keep playing to watch how this ragtag family of space rejects continues to evolve on their wild quest. Coming in next is Dreamscaper. Here's a game that sort of slips under the radar, but once you settle in, the loop starts to grab you. Dreamscaper gives you this unique mix of roguelite mechanics and emotional storytelling. By day, you're in the real world, interacting with friends, building relationships, soaking in warmth from small, cozy interactions. It keeps things grounded, but by night, that's when you dive into the dreams, dodging and weaving through intense nightmare-fueled combat. There's this neat balance between the calm, reflective daytime and the rapid-fire combat of the dream world. The dreamscapes themselves are procedurally generated, which means every dive into the night feels fresh and unpredictable. You're dealing with the protagonist's inner demons, not just in the form of abstract monsters, but through the themes the game explores, things like regret, trauma, hopes, and dreams. It's surprisingly intimate for this type of game. Combat rises and falls with the mood. Your weapon set is always changing, a mix of ranged, melee, and otherworldly abilities. You can customize and enhance builds and skills based on dream fragments you've gathered. Sometimes, it's the upgrades between combat that slow the pacing a bit too much. There's a lot of inventory management that can take away from the momentum of action. Still, the loop between everyday life and dream battles creates an experience where you're constantly drawn into the next day, eager to see how both the story and combat challenges unfold. Next up is Orcs Must Die 3. You know what you're getting into with Orcs Must Die. Yeah, it's all about laying traps, tossing out magic, and mowing down hordes of frantic orcs. The beauty here is in its unapologetic chaos. This game takes what the series does best and cranks the sheer scale way up. More orcs? More traps? Yes, across the board. Except now, the war scenarios introduce massive battlegrounds with way more enemies flooding your screen than before. There's this strange satisfaction in organizing elaborate trap networks, from spike floors to fire-spewing walls, and then watching the onslaught get obliterated right as soon as they tear through the gates. It's the ultimate playground for strategic creativity. You can spend ages just fine-tuning every path, making sure there's no way out for those poor orcs. And then things get even wilder once you mix in your personal weapons, like blasting them off the edge with a wind gun. Where Orcs Must Die 3 really shifts, though, is the introduction of those massive war machines. You're dealing with entire armies at once, not just small waves. The scale is, well, pretty bonkers. However, there are points where the larger scale battles can feel a bit drawn out, especially if you're used to the faster pacing of the smaller encounters. Still, it rarely gets old, throwing wave after wave of orcs into the grinder you've crafted. Want to toy with orcs using traps that deliver endless, cartoonish fun? This is where you stay, unlocking new tools to create even more devastating setups. To wrap things up, here's Pacific Drive. When you first hop into Pacific Drive, there's something intriguing about this whole idea of driving through a twisted, post-apocalyptic version of the American Northwest. Imagine a road trip, but through dangerous paranormal storms, decayed infrastructure, and a landscape that's constantly battling against you. It combines survival mechanics with driving, making you treat your car like it's your lifeline, because, well, it is. Without it, you're done. Right off the bat, the game gives you a sense of constant tension. Each trip out into the wilderness feels unpredictable. Strange anomalies and supernatural events could pop up at any moment, messing with everything from the road ahead to your vehicle's health. There's a core rhythm to the game where you venture out for supplies or data, then race back to your garage to repair, upgrade, and plan out your next route. There's plenty of maintenance, figuring out what your car needs to survive the next leg of the journey. It almost turns into managing an expedition rather than just driving fast. The eerie atmosphere doesn't let up for a second. The further you drive, the stranger things get, otherworldly phenomena distorting everything you see. With each drive, you start to overthink every move, wondering how long you can risk staying out in the wild. At times, the driving can feel a bit repetitive. The roads don't give a whole lot of variety from trip to trip, but the unsettling atmosphere, combined with the idea that your car is as much a character as the player, keeps you immersed, always prepping for that next daring trip through chaos. And there you have it, folks. If you enjoyed the list and found some new games to add to your lineup, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more recommendations you didn't know you needed. As always, thanks for watching and see you in the next video.